For the first time since signing in March, local media got a chance to see Sam Darnold on the practice field, a bunch of newcomers, first open OTA. How did things go for Darnold and company? Going to be breaking it all down here with some instant takeaways on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang, and a special thanks to all the 12s out there, whether you're listening from Easton, Washington, or Pismo Beach, California. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. For the first time this spring, we have open OTAs, 3 of them this week. The first one happening today at the VMAC. First opportunity to see Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, a number of new Seahawks, and the first time seeing the rookie class with the vets on the practice field. We are going to be diving into a ton of takeaways from the VMAC. Rob, let's open the festivities here. We have to begin with the most important position in professional sports, quarterback. Got the first opportunity to see Sam Darnold on the practice field today. Drew Lock back in Seahawks blue. Jalen Milroe, we've gotten to see him at rookie minicamp, but going against veterans, now playing with the veterans. And I will just say this right off the bat. We have no idea whether Sam Darnold is going to be as good or better than Geno Smith. Or maybe worse. We don't know how that's going to play out. But I can already say definitively that this quarterback room is much improved from the one we saw last year, from top to bottom. We already got to see that today. Even if Sam Darnold had a roller coaster first practice, and these are going to happen, these things are going to happen, this group already looks significantly better than the one the Seahawks had last year.
Yeah, which is not to be unexpected. I mean, I just think that when you look at the starting experience that is not only Sam Darnold and the familiarity that he has, of course, with Clint Kubiak's offense. Geno Smith didn't have that familiarity. Nobody did with Ryan Grubb's offense a year ago. The fact that Drew Lock has been a starter in several different spots throughout his NFL career. And then Jalen Milroe, just with the talent level that he possesses, I think that he is obviously going to be somebody that is going to attract an awful lot of attention. Look, I expect there to be some growing pains for all 3 of these quarterbacks. The reality is that Geno Smith, just a couple of seasons ago, set the Seahawks record with his completion percentage. So the bar is pretty damn high, when we're having this conversation. But at the same time, I'm very excited about what Sam Darnold was able to do, not only today, but obviously moving forward. And I feel very confident that the Seahawks have a quality backup in Drew Lock. He only had the one start in his time in Seattle before, and he just wound up being a very good Philadelphia Eagles team that a year later wound up just winning the Super Bowl. And then, again, with Jalen Milroe, I think that the upside is through the roof. So, yes, but I think that the quarterback room is one of Seattle's strengths. I think it's one of the strongest groups in all of the NFL. I'm curious to hear your thought. This was your first impression there in the field at the Virginia Mesa Athletic Center. What did you see? What were your first impressions of Sam Darnold? Not only in terms of accuracy, I'm also curious about what you saw from him as a leader of this new Seahawks regime.
So we're going to talk leadership. Look, Sam Darnold, he is a different personality than some of the quarterbacks the Seahawks have had, but very laid back. You can tell that the guys love playing with him. That's already very evident. The receivers were laughing with him. They were really having a good time, and you could see him off to the side after practice. They were working through some things. So I think from the leadership standpoint, he's going to be a good fit. The Seahawks wouldn't have signed him if they didn't think that aspect was going to be covered. As far as what I saw on the field today, as I mentioned earlier, it was a roller coaster practice for Sam Darnold. But I want to put the fire out before all of the fans start trying to light a quarterback controversy on fire here. Let's put it out for a second. This is practice. Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice here. this is an opportunity to work on things. And even though Sam Darnold has played for Clint Kubiak before, Kubiak was not running his offense. He was a pass game coordinator in San Francisco. So there's still going to be some adjustments. And what I saw today, we saw the arm talent. There's no question about it. And first red zone session, throws a touchdown down the seam, literally the first play, to Cooper Kupp. That'll get Seahawks fans excited. It was a perfect throw. And then had 2 touchdown passes to Jackson Smith and Jigba today. The second one was the most impressive, lofting it over the linebacker, dropping in coverage in the red zone. Fully extended JSN, gets both feet down. So you got to see throws like that were impressive. You also saw, and this has been Sam Darnold's issue a lot of the time in his career, the turnovers and maybe trusting his arm a little bit too much. There was a 3-play span in the red zone, 11 on 11. Actually, this was the 7-on-7 drills. There were 3 throws. One of them in the middle was one of the touchdowns to JSN, but it was sandwiched by 2 picks. And the first one, Julian Love, it was just a fantastic play by the Pro Bowl safety. Just jumped the route by Cooper Kupp, got underneath it, and picked it off. Maybe not the best decision with where Love was at in coverage, but it was a fantastic defensive play. And then after the JSN touchdown, Darnold was rolling out, and he was trying to slip the ball around the sideline. I believe Jake Bobo was the receiver he was trying to get the ball to. And here comes Josh Jobe out of nowhere, as if he's got afterburners just rolling. Leaps, catches it along the sideline, gets both hands in bounds, pick. So you had two interceptions in 3 plays. And you also had, this was the other thing I noticed, there were a lot of plays in 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 where Sam Darnold was holding onto the ball and it didn't even get released. In practice, you can't have that. You got to be getting the ball out. The receivers got to be getting open. And there were several times that he held onto it. It looked like there were receivers open. So that chemistry is going to be something that's going to take some time. But he did finish on a strong note. He had 3 touchdowns in their last session, including finishing up with another touchdown to Cooper Kupp. He had 3 of them today to Cooper Kupp. So there's a lot of positives. There's some negatives as well. Real quick, though, Rob, I want to talk about Drew Lock, because anytime you're watching, look, any practice I watch, I don't care if it's OTAs, training camp, if it somehow was a practice in the regular season and we got to watch it, which we don't, but let's just say that we do. I'm always going to point out the guys that stand out as the best. Drew Lock was the best player on the field today for the Seattle Seahawks. And that doesn't mean that he's going to do that on Wednesday and Thursday, but today, Drew Lock was throwing the ball. He was spinning it. He was spinning the pigskin today. There was a couple throws that he made that were just flat out eye-popping. And one that jumped out to me, he's rolling out to his right, almost out of bounds, 15 yards back from the line of scrimmage, and over his body, throwing against his body, throws a bullet 25 yards downfield to Steven Sims, hits him right in stride where Sims can get both feet down in bounds. You could hear audible gasps and oohs on the sideline from both people who are involved in the organization and reporters. It was a fantastic throw. Locke also had a beautiful throw down the seam to Cody White for a touchdown in the first red zone segment. Jalen Milroe had some flashes. There were some frustrating throws that he made, several underthrows on deep balls. So the accuracy was not where you want it to be consistency-wise. He has to continue attacking that. But you saw some big throws. You saw his running ability on a few plays. So those flashes, they're going to continue to be there. But again, I see a quarterback room that is much better than it was a year ago. Drew Lock was spinning it, though. I don't know that he had a bad throw today. And if a ball hit the ground, it was dropped. Like the guy was just throwing dimes on that practice field today.
Yeah, that's great news. I think that, just for the first part here, because you guys gave us an awful lot to chew on there, I think that the receivers that you just acknowledged that Drew Lock was throwing to, I mean, whether it be Steven Sims, whether it be Cody White, not only the fact that Drew Lock was throwing to clearly Seattle's number 2 or number 3 wide receivers, that means that he's also likely going up against Seattle's number 2, number 3 defensive backs. And so I think that that's interesting right there. That's it. Accuracy, arm strength, just the talent. I mean, look, I'm a Drew Lock guy. I've been a Drew Lock guy since back when he was playing at Missouri. Again, I'm not surprised that he had a splashy performance. I also think that you have to, and you did, give credit to Josh Jobe as well as Julian Love for terrific plays. I'm curious. I mean, like the interception with Julian Love, for example, was that just the classic, quick slant at the line of scrimmage, or quick slant in the red zone or at the goal line? Because of course, Seahawks fans have been burned by that type of a play call in the past. And I think that if you have a savvy defensive back who is able to make that quick adjustment, then they are able to make that type of a quick play. So I guess I'm going to put you on the spot here for a moment, Corbin, because everybody else is basically trying to evaluate what's going on through our words rather than actually seeing it. Was this a case of Sam Darnold making a poor throw or the wide receiver making a lazy route? Or is this a case of Julian Love making just a terrific play as a Pro Bowl caliber safety is apt to do occasionally?
I think it was a throw that Darnold probably shouldn't have made, but it's practice. And this is when you're experimenting some and you're trying to learn this playbook. To me, this was about Julian Love. He was all over that crosser. I don't believe it was a slant. It was a crossing route by Cooper Kupp, and he was right on his hip the entire time. And then when the throw was coming out of Darnold's hand from the sideline, I'm like, oh, that's getting picked. And it was very clear right away that Julian Love was going to do that. And then, as I mentioned with Jobe's pick, that was just excellent effort, manned up, gets over the sideline, and he just seemed like he turned on the afterburners at the last second to be able to get that football. And that one, I could see why Darnold thought that might be open, but Jobe made a really good play. So again, I don't want to sit here and say that I am just saying there's a quarterback controversy. There is not. Darnold made a lot of really good throws today, but there were some mistakes. There were some bad decisions. And the Seahawks defense, as we'll be talking about later, when you make those mistakes, they are going to capitalize on it. And I think that's the thing that's got to be most exciting when we're talking about this Seahawks defense. And I can't wait to get to that later in the show. But first, we got to talk about the real MVPs of the football teams. That's the offensive line. And there's a lot to unpack after the first day of OTAs. We're going to get to that, including the right guard competition, what we know after that first open OTA. Get to that up next here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedInNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedInNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. And for your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. The NFL Draft is way in the rearview mirror. Roster moves and news never stop, however. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Rob, first open OTA to the media. I know there were a lot of Seahawks fans last week that were messaging us. Why aren't we getting insight on OTAs? We don't get to go to every single OTA. In fact, we get to go to 3 of the 9. 3 of them are open to media. Today was the first one, our first look at Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, a number of newcomers, the rookies with the vets, a lot of exciting things. And you and I now, we want to talk about maybe the position group that's not sexy, and that's the offensive line. But it has been such a problem source for the Seattle Seahawks for such a long time. It needs to be one of the things that we tackle the most here as we look towards the 2025 season. And I want to start the discussion with a position that does not look like it's going to be a competition. At least that is the way that I'm seeing it right now. And look, Mike Macdonald is going to say all the right things, and the Seahawks are going to say all the right things, that no, he has not earned a job. This is a competition. But Gray Zabel is cemented in at left guard, in my opinion, unless he just comes in and just absolutely whiffs in training camp when we get there, or there's an injury. But let's just take the injury out of the equation. He's already in there with the first team. He's getting the vast majority, if not all of those reps. And we'll see how this plays out in the next few days. Maybe they'll give somebody else an opportunity with the ones at the left guard spot. But it really feels like the tone has already been set. And Gray Zabel, he has come in, he's been in attack mode. He wants to be that starting left guard. And he's not taking his first round status. He's not using that, well, this job is already mine. He's going out and he is making sure that he wins that job. But it seems like he's already cemented into that left guard spot. And that should have Seahawks fans really excited. And I can tell you, he looks every bit like an NFL-ready offensive lineman out there. Seeing him against Seattle's other offensive linemen, he looks physically ready to be able to play in the trenches.
Well, I think physically ready and mentally ready are very key elements here. You know, this is an entirely different offensive setup. Offensive scheme, offensive coordinator, offensive line coaches here for the Seahawks. So in a very real sense, Corbin, of course, all of the Seahawks veterans are making that same transition that Gray Zabel is. This is new to all of them. So I think that we have to, let's kind of start from the very, very beginning here. I mean, left to right, it was Charles Cross, it was Gray Zabel, it was Ola Oluwatimi, it was Christian Haynes at the right guard position, and of course Abe Lucas at right tackle. There was some Josh Jones was getting some play at the right tackle position behind Abe Lucas, but Abe Lucas is clearly the starter there. I think that you had behind Christian Haynes was Anthony Bradford was getting some reps, Jalen Sundell at the center position, Satoa Laumea getting a few spots, a few opportunities at left guard, but the starting five looked pretty clear here. And of course, Charles Cross at left tackle. The starting five looked pretty clear. And I think that you have to kind of start the conversation there, which is the fact that this was, as expected, the starting five for the Seahawks. And to me, if we're going to have the conversation already in OTAs about the positional balance, because that's what most of our listeners are curious about, I think we have to focus in on the right guard position. Because Gray Zabel, as you said, and as I've been texting some guys that were at the practices or the OTAs before you or I were eligible to go to any of them. And they basically said that Gray Zabel, in one guy's words, said it was just like the Senior Bowl. He's stealing reps. He wanted to get in there at that left guard position, and he was going to take every opportunity he possibly could. But at the right guard position, however, I think that this is still very much a battle. So, again, with Christian Haynes starting at that right guard position, Anthony Bradford getting his reps as well. I'm curious what you saw, if you felt like, obviously, again, Christian Haynes getting the first opportunities, but did you feel like there was one of those players or anybody else along the offensive line that really kind of turned your head and made you, kind of take some notes, either good or bad, from what you saw?
So I will say this, and we always have to put this disclaimer out there when it's not training camp and the pads aren't out. Look, we can't see these guys block. We can't see them block defenders. They can hit sleds, but we don't really get the chance to see much of an evaluation away from athleticism. But I will say this, Christian Haynes looks like he has been in the weight room. Last year, one of the big gripes, the one that Ryan Grubb kept pointing out, was about play strength. I don't know that that's going to be an issue for Christian Haynes, and we'll see if it still is when the pads come out. But he definitely looks like his upper body, his arms, it looks like he has been attacking the weight room. And to me, that is the biggest thing that was holding him back last year. It was clear in the coach's eyes. So I'm so excited to see what he looks like when we get the pads on, and you're going to be able to start knocking some guys off the ball. Looked fleet of foot as you expect. And that was really the thing that I loved watching this line today. It just seemed like you could tell that this is a very athletic group across the board. And I've got to point out, listen, I already mentioned the other day that Abe Lucas, if he's healthy and he plays all 17 games or close to all 17 games, I have a very lofty set of expectations for him. And he didn't do anything to slow that down today. And I know this is the time of year where everybody's in the best shape of their life. Look, Abraham Lucas is in the best shape of his life. That guy is absolutely shredded for an offensive lineman. And some may say, well, he's too lean. No, he is every bit 325, 330 pounds. He looks the part. He is a massive human being, but he looks cut. He looks ripped. And he was moving really well today. The fact that he was getting most of those right tackle reps after all the injuries he's had, that is fantastic news for Seahawk fans. And just the way he's moving, you're pouring gasoline on the fire, Abe. But that guy looks fantastic. And so I will leave it at that from that perspective. But the athleticism on display. As for the right guard competition, I think I've been saying this for weeks. I think this still has a chance to be a 4-horse race, not just 2. Right now, they're starting with Christian Haynes and Anthony Bradford, and those are the 2 that competed last year. And Bradford ultimately was the one that won the job. The fact that Haynes was getting the first reps today, who knows how much that matters in the scheme of things. Bradford may get the most reps on Wednesday. We don't know how they're going to be handling this. But it does look like John Benton and this new coaching staff, they're wanting to give Christian Haynes that first opportunity because he was the 3rd-round pick. He's got the nimbleness, the athleticism, was such a good college player, both in pass pro and run blocking. Benton, I feel like, is looking at this situation saying, go win this job, kid. That's the way that I am viewing this. And I really was viewing this until I saw him on the field. And now I feel like that is what the Seahawks and John Benton are hoping happens here. But I think Bryce Cabledew is going to get his chances down the line. Satoa Lamea played left guard today, but he started 6 games at right guard. They very well could use him at right guard, and Haynes might get some reps at left guard behind Gray Zabel. They are going to do mixing and matching, and that's what makes this, to me, the most intriguing positional battle on the entire roster. There might be some depth chart battles that are up there, but in terms of starting jobs, this is the marquee competition that holds a lot of significance to how good the Seahawks team is potentially going to be this year. If Christian Haynes can come back from that tough rookie season, win that job, and play to the potential they believe he is capable of with this new coaching staff, Rob, that could be a game changer for the Seahawks offense.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. I think that that's the way that the Seattle's offensive line just should match up. I mean, look at Gray Zabel. To me, he looks like more of a left guard than, say, a Christian Haynes, who with that big frame, and he's also a terrific athlete, as he demonstrated at the Combine a couple of years ago. But I still believe that he fits in best at that right guard position. Really quickly, Corbin, before we switch to the next conversation here.
Well, I guess I will jump in. It looks like Rob is Rob froze again.
I apologize. Really quickly, with the center position with Oluwatimi, was he getting the lion's share of the reps when it came to the ones at the center position?
He did. Yeah, he got most of the reps that I was watching. Sundell got a little bit of action with the first team, but I've been saying this for the last couple weeks. I don't know. I've kind of changed my tune there. I thought Sundell might get a real shot to win that job, and maybe he still will. But it does seem like Oluwatimi, that in the organization, there's still really high hopes for him, and he played pretty well in the second half last year. So right now, he looks to be the front runner at that position, and I think that is honestly, that would be a really good development for this offensive line. Because from a continuity standpoint, and the fact he's still only in his 3rd season and there's a lot of upside still, I think that would be a win for the Seahawks. Now, if Jalen Sundell goes and gets that job, then he's a great athlete. He's played a number of positions. Continuity with Gray Zabel, you'd have that there from their college days. So I think that the center job could still potentially be up for grabs, but right now it feels like it's very much Oluwatimi's job to lose. Right guard is the one position that's very wide open. I don't feel like left guard's a competition. Center probably isn't. The tackle positions certainly are not. So right guard's the one that we are going to be watching most closely. When we come back, we're going to shift gears to the defensive side of the football, and it is clear that expectations have been set for Mike Macdonald's unit. We'll get to that coming up next year as we continue our takeaways from the first open practice at OTAs here on Locked On Seahawks. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. I'm your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined as always by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. Thank you as always for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Continuing to dive into the first open OTA practice of the spring, the first open one for local media. We got to watch the Seahawks today at the VMAC. We've looked at the quarterbacks, first impressions. We've talked offensive line, where that right guard competition is going. Let's shift our attention now over to the defensive side of the football. And I'll say this right off the bat. The prevailing theme out of day one of open OTAs had nothing to do with plays being made on the field. It had nothing to do with physicality. That is going to come in time when the contact's allowed. It was the mindset. And this is the thing that really was, I'm not going to say it was surprising to me because it just feels like Mike Macdonald is building this culture, but I would say there's maybe 4 guys or 5 guys that did not practice today on the 90-man roster. It was almost everybody out there. And the other guys that weren't there, the only one that I didn't see that was actually in attendance today was DeMarcus Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence obviously was not in attendance because he's not a Seattle Seahawk, but DeMarcus Lawrence was not there from my vantage point. But Jonathan Hankins was in attendance, just wasn't practicing. Uchenna Nwosu coming off knee surgery in attendance, just wasn't practicing. Same for Tyreek Smith. I don't know what injury he's coming back from. And Ernest Jones, I remember correctly that there was some talk that he might have needed a knee cleanup procedure after the season. He was running around before practice and just didn't participate. So I'm assuming he's close to being back, but he did not practice today. Otherwise, everybody was practicing and they were in uniform. So that's really good news for the Seahawks at this time of year. They don't have a lot of guys coming off significant injury. I guess Riley Mills was there as well and not practicing yet, but he was in attendance. And a lot of times you see, because these are voluntary, Rob, a lot of times you don't see most of these veterans at OTAs. That was not the case at all. Jaron Reed, you had Leonard Williams, you had all of the corners and safeties were there. It is clear that this is a defense that's on a mission. Jaron Reed made it clear today with the statements that, look, we made a big jump last year, but we want to be the number 1 defense in the NFL. The actions are speaking to those expectations with having everybody bought in.
Yeah, I love the way that you just kind of explained that, because that was some of the thought that I was getting as well. The veteran like a Jaron Reed is still there. He doesn't have to be there at this point. I mean, just re-sign a deal. I mean, this is voluntary OTAs. And so a lot of the veterans would stay away from these types of things. So the fact that he was there, that he was and just as adamant, this is not a top 5 defense that they're striving for, that they are striving to be number 1. Devin Witherspoon, same kind of thing. I mean, he said the same words, basically. They want to be the number 1 defense in all of the NFL. So that's obviously encouraging. I'm curious, again, just to kind of start from the lowest possible level, just the starting lineup. So as you mentioned, Ernest Jones was not on the field. I assume that Tyrese Knight then was going to be basically the linebacker who was going to be making some star-worthy plays. Was it Patrick Connell? Or was it who was it that was starting?
Drake Thomas.
Yeah,
Drake Thomas was getting the vast majority of the reps next to Tyrese Knight. Tyrese Knight was playing the Mike position with Ernest Jones being out, which that's big because he's getting experience of that position. If, God forbid, that Ernest Jones got banged up during the season, you could slide Tyrese Knight over there, and then Drake Thomas can step in at your other inside linebacker position. And so you got to see that. And Tyrese Knight had a couple nice plays in coverage. He had a pass breakup. Then he had another one that he got a piece of, and somehow Zach Charbonnet still caught the football. I don't know how that happened, but sometimes you just have bad bounces that don't work your way. It was a great coverage play, though, by Tyrese Knight. And it was interesting listening to Adam Durde afterwards. We got to chat with him, one of the coaches that was made available after practice today. And he was just talking about how it was night and day difference for Tyrese Knight from the first couple starts that he had And then in second half, the way that he was playing. And now it just boils down to the mentality, the mental part of the game where he has to grow the most. He's got the athleticism. He's got the physicality. He's got the tackling. He's got the want to. He's got the calm and the poise. So that's one sophomore the Seahawks are very excited about going into 2025. The other one is Byron Murphy II. And I found the comments from Adam Durday today. And listen, we don't get to see him tackle anybody right now. We're going to have to wait till training camp to really see where he's at progress-wise. But he looks like he's added some good weight to his frame. He looks stronger. Looks like he's in better conditioning. And Adam Durday had this to say about expectations for year 2 for the former first-round pick. Take a listen.
Yeah, I think the next level for him is just consistency. I felt like for him, he had a certain role, like a first and second down role, some third down reps. He's really trying to, I think he can make a big jump to become an every down D tackle, and affect the game on all down and distances. You kind of saw glimpses of it last year, but it's just building that consistency, that mental conditioning, physical conditioning, understanding what type of situation you're in for that position, because there's lots of different things that can happen. And then he plays more, kind of different techniques inside.
We've known about the technique stuff because last year Murphy played more nose tackle than I thought he was going to, and not as many third down reps. And that was the other emphasis there for Adam Durday. That's what they want out of Byron Murphy going into his second season. They want him to take that leap where they have more reps on third down. He earns those opportunities and he takes advantage of them. That's where your pass rushing statistics are going to come into play. Not that you can't get sacks and quarterback hits on first and second down, but third downs, that is typically going to be a high passing situation, more opportunities. And he just simply didn't get enough chances last year. I mean, Rob, he ranked 7th, according to Pro Football Focus, on true pass sets. He ranked 7th among defensive tackles in pass rush win rate. So it's not like he wasn't effective generating pressure. He just didn't get near enough opportunities to be able to do so in real pass rushing chances. And so that is clearly what they are hoping to see. And that's where the statistics come into play. And you can really unleash Byron Murphy II and have him play to his full potential.
Yeah, that's what I'm most excited about. Look, I have been, I don't want to be critical, but I certainly thought that there was a chance that Jerzon Newton was going to be Seattle's first-round selection. They're going to go with a defensive tackle, and he wound up playing in more games and generating more tackles for loss, and more sacks this past season for the Washington Commanders. But I think that's an excellent point that you and, of course, Coach Adam Durday make, is that Byron Murphy II just didn't get as many opportunities. And so I am encouraged by the improved, whether it be the mental or the physical conditioning, and the possibilities Byron Murphy might be able to get a few more big plays in the middle. That's why, of course, the Seahawks selected him 16th overall. And as you said, I mean, he is one of those second-year players that you are expecting to make a big jump. I'll kind of end my comments on with this one. Another, young player I'm excited about. What did you see from Nick Emenwari? I'm curious where you saw him lined up, and if he was able to make any of the big plays that his size and speed seem like that they should be, ready to come by when you have that type of athletic ability.
This isn't abnormal for rookies, but Emenwari, there were several times that during drills he had to be taken off to the side by a coach, and then he had to go back through it because he didn't do things exactly how they wanted him to. Here's the really good news, though. Every time that I saw that happen, the next rep, he got it, and the coaches were applauding him. So he is quickly learning from those things. As Devin Witherspoon was saying, he has a very high football IQ. He is not going to have issues picking these things up, and he's going to be a guy who, when he does make mistakes, he's going to learn from them. As far as positional alignment, got to see him blitz some, got to see him play up in the box, got to see him a little bit as a slot. That was the extent of what I saw today from him, and he was getting mostly second and third defensive reps. That's how it's got to be. You've got to earn your opportunities, especially when you got Kobe Bryant and Julian Love atop the depth chart. And they got a couple other safeties that made some plays today as well. So D'Anthony Bell, their free agent signing, was in on a couple of plays. I'm going to end on this note. We talk safeties, we talk corners. The cornerback position, one of the narratives, and you and I have talked about this ad nauseum, you lose Trey Brown, you lose Artie Burns. There's concerns maybe about depth. but you see Josh Jobe make that impressive end zone interception. Shamar Jean-Charles, who they signed in free agency from the Saints, he's a guy that's kind of been forgotten since he signed, but he had a fantastic play today where Broden, the undrafted rookie receiver, Jalen Milroe tried to hit him in the back corner of the end zone. Ball bounced off his hands, and Jean-Charles got both feet in bounds. The ref said he didn't, but Nick Emanwari and Devin Witherspoon made sure to let him know that he was wrong after they looked at the replay on the video screen. But it was a fantastic play. And then the next play, he gave up a touchdown. But let's be honest, Elijah Arroyo had his arms fully extended and threw him to the ground. So that should have been offensive pass interference. And again, Devin Witherspoon made sure to let the ref know that he missed that call. The energy and the enthusiasm out there. But the fact of the matter is, I thought that Jean-Charles had a really good day and Josh Jobe had a really good day. Maybe the Seahawks are completely fine with those two being their 3 and 4 corners, and they don't need to go out and consider making a move for somebody like a Jalen Ramsey or trying to sign somebody like Shaquille Griffin. They may feel perfectly comfortable. Maybe that confidence grows during OTAs with these guys making plays, even with the rules preventing them from being able to do a lot of things this time of year. So maybe, just maybe, it's been one practice. We'll see where things stand once we get through OTAs and minicamp. But maybe the Seahawks have better depth at corner than we thought they did going into this process. And that's going to be something that's going to be fun to watch here the rest of this week. And, of course, minicamp coming later this month. And once we get to training camp, we'll see where things fit in that cornerback room. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. You can follow Rob at Rob Rang. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. And for our listeners that subscribe to the Emerald City Spectrum or have not subscribed yet, we have a Father's Day sale from now till June 15th, 50% off, $30 instead of $60 for an annual 12-month membership. That's from now till June 15th. Father's Day sale. Just enter in the code Father's Day at emeraldcityspectrum.com to get 50% off for the next year on an annual membership. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be dishing out some more thoughts from OTAs, and we're going to have our Tuesday mailbag segment before Wednesday and Thursday. We have 2 more open practices at the VMAC. Make sure that you are listening in and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Go Hawks.